Good evening to those of you out in the Swuggiverse. I want to talk to you about the most important problem plaguing the game right now, and that is more important than eras. That is more important than Colosseum, and quite frankly, it is more important than the fact that Fat Phil claims that he is king of the Wampas and still has not applied Relic 10 to his Wampa character, let alone to any character. This is a problem 3 months in the making and is quite a chaotic one. And what I am talking about is the fact that 3.5, if not 4 months after announcing that CG would be removing Galactic Challenges from the game entirely, that Gungan Phalanx still has a Galactic Challenge Omicron. And I understand that there are actually technically three other useless Omicrons in the game for specific raid modes. But the reality is that technically raids still exist, and technically players are still doing those raids at the lower end. I know I'm surprised by that too, but I have seen some of the guilds still doing Naboo. Whereas with the Gungan Phalanx Omicron, there is no game mode for this character. Now, this is, like the Gungans, a very chaotic problem. And with that said, I wanted to have a little bit of fun with that video. So I messaged Moonborn, who does a lot of the art for me. And I basically said to him a little bit earlier today, hey man, I want to do this video on the Gungan Omicron. I want you to have fun with the card. I don't care what it looks like. I will use literally whatever you send me. And he, of course, said, that's really dangerous. You know that, right? And I do know that, but I also like to have fun. So as of this recording, I haven't seen that card. I don't know how deranged it is, and I don't know how bad it makes me look. But I do want to talk about this subject and my solution for it. So let's get into it. So here we have Gungan Phalanx, and you can see that his Let Misa Help unique does have a Galactic Challenge Omicron on it. And this is something that actually annoyed me when it first came out because it was the first and only Galactic Challenge Omicron. And I had resigned myself to applying all of the Omicrons for this team to completely max them out. I didn't actually apply this one for a very long time until I lost a bet to Rabid Beaver on one of his streams. That Galactic Challenge Omicron reads, at the start of the first turn, the ally shield generator gains 10 stacks of plasma shielding. Enemies can't assist if they are targeting Phalanx, and at the start of the encounter and whenever an enemy is defeated, all Gungan allies gain 100% evasion for 1 turn. Whenever a Gungan ally uses a special ability for the next 2 turns, all Gungan allies have 50% offense, and their basic abilities expose the target enemy for 1 turn. Whenever a Gungan ally inflicts defense down, all Gungan allies gain offense up for 1 turn. Whenever any Gungan ally attacks, of outturn they Whenever any Gungan ally attacks of outturn, they remove 20% turn meter from the target enemy. This Omicron is applied so sparingly that I don't think I ever even noticed that the text on it doesn't even make sense. Now, the reality is that there were very few Gungan Galactic Challenges in the course of this being applied, and there was no way, shape, or form where anybody actually got any return on investment from it. But I still did dutifully apply it because if I lose a bet, I am going to commit to that. Now, when CG got rid of Galactic Challenges, they did commit to changing this Omicron sometime in the near future. It says right here, while the Gungan Phalanx Omicron will still be marked as a GC Omicron on this release, we currently plan to transition that Omicron to a different game mode in the future and will decide on whether a refund of Omicron materials is warranted at that time. So that begs the question, where do we put another Omicron for the Gungan team? The reality is that when we talk about Jar Jar Binks and his 3 Galactic Challenge Omicrons, if you really put the effort into this team, they kick ass. I get holds with them all the time. And yes, I know that we just got over the Uber set, and that Uber set really gave them a huge push. But anytime we see Gungan Datacrons, you are going to see that same attrition rate when it comes to trying to take mine on defense. In TW, they do fairly well with Boss Nass and his Omicron. And I again know that the TB Omicron allows Tarpals to auto even the R9 planets. So the only thing that is left to do is give us a Conquest Omicron. And I am aware that Conquest Omicrons are few and far between, with Sortie and Padawan Obi-Wan being the only other two characters to have them. Both of those Omicrons serving a distinct purpose. Sortie's Omicron, we're going to pull it up right here. I guess I spelled it wrong. My God. We're just going to go to droid. I'll make it easier. I don't remember where that hyphen is. Sortie's Omicron on her lead. The first time the first enemy to take a turn is defeated. If there are other active enemies, all allies are revived with 60% health and gain damage immunity and instant defeat immunity for 2 turns. This basically revives the team. It works pretty well. I know a lot of players don't have it, but it allows you to recoup some of those burritos in Conquest, which is really nice for the people that have applied it. And then we have Padawan Obi-Wans. And we're not going to read the full text on that, but Padawan Obi-Wan's essentially gives everybody a shit ton of health, protection, speed, gives him turns all over the place, and allows for a player to do buff and debuff feats a lot easier with any team. This is a huge quality of life Omicron, and I applied it pretty early on because it makes my life easier. So the one thing in Conquest where we don't necessarily have great support is in the survival feats. And I know, as somebody with 14.6 million GP, that I can make any character survive by throwing in any GL. But the reality is that is not the case for every player. So in designing a Conquest Omicron, I wanted to design something that stayed true to Let Misa help, right? And how Let Misa help works. And also stay true to the idea of giving this Omicron a distinct purpose. So here is the redesigned Gungan Phalanx Omicron. Right off of the bat, at the start of battle, if the ally in the leader slot has a Gungan tag, all allies are granted the Gungan tag for the remainder of battle. And this would apply before Boss Nass's leadership, so you would still get a shield generator. At the start of the first turn, the allied shield generator gains 1 stack of plasma shielding for every 3 relic levels on the allied team. While Gungan Phalanx is alive, allied shield generators cannot lose more than 2 stacks of plasma shielding per turn. This is something that probably wouldn't come up very often, but I'm just thinking to the possibility of there being new Conquest teams in the future. If Great Mothers ever came to Conquest, this is something that would stop that protection disruption from automatically defeating the team, even though the team probably would still lose there. If Gungan Phalanx is at or above 50% stamina at the start of each enemy turn, there is a 1% chance of that enemy being instantly defeated, increased to 10% for separatist enemies. Essentially, this is a callback to Jar Jar Binks and the randomness that happens in his kit. This is a team that would allow players to bring in characters that are not Gungans and allow them to survive. Now, obviously, you would still need to invest in your Gungans because your Gungan team not being strong will still completely lose in Conquest, but it would allow, say, a SM-33 survival feat where you don't have a pirate team to throw SM-33 in one of those slots, probably for a Gungan Bombardier, but I'm just thinking off the top of my head, and have him treated as a Gungan in that situation. This is something that would not apply more offense or defense or debuffs to the team. It is strictly for the survival of that character. Now, that 1% chance of the enemy instantly being defeated obviously isn't going to work against enemies that cannot be instantly defeated, and it will cause a little bit of random chaos that may make Conquest easier for some players. But the reality is here that if your Gungan team was not going to win, you would have to throw shit at the wall for multiple battles and really hope for some really good RNG. And in that case, CG does end up winning because you are burning all of your energy. But the players also win here because they have something that at least is marginally useful to them, even if a lot of players wouldn't apply it. I can't say that this would or wouldn't cause coding nightmares or anything to be hectic, but it would give me something to play with. It would give Gungan owners something to play with instead of having an Omicron that once again was completely useless even when Galactic Challenges were around, and is even more completely useless now that Galactic Challenges aren't even there. What I do want to know, one, is in the comments if one, you would apply this. I'm going to tell you right now that if I were refunded, I would apply it again just to make my life easier for survival feats. But two, if there is something else that you would do with this Omicron that you feel is reasonable to the player and to the balance of the game, keeping in mind that because this is Conquest, the crazy game balance that we require for PvP is not something we have to worry about. With all of that said, peace out and pray for me that this YouTube card at least paints me in a good light.